All right. We are going to be doing our first tutorial, and we're also going to do some checking in here on different parts of the class. Some things I've seen people struggling with, maybe some things people aren't struggling with or they don't think they are, but I'm going to let you know about them. Paige, I am going to ask you if you could please if you could just send me a link to your binder page, because I'm going to show your binder off as a beautiful, beautiful, perfect example of a binder. Otherwise, I can find it, but it'll just take me a couple more seconds. So you could send it in the chat. You could send it privately if you want. There's a way to send to just me, I think. Oh, I'll just find a page, don't even worry. Okay, I'll show you how I find it, actually. It's fun. So we're going to do our first tutorial today, right, which is going to be an interesting learning process and hopefully not super boring, right? I know some of those videos of the model ones, right, were snooze fests. Right, the reason why, guys, if there's a video camera in a school, everyone is like, oh, and then I did this, and acting very perfectly, right, and doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And maybe not the most enthusiastic, but we're going to try to be enthusiastic about our tutorials because I want to make them fun, and also I want them to be filled with learning. That's why we have 4 exclamation marks. So what we're going to do, first of all, is talk about our objectives and our announcements. I will check if it works on the second page. Our objectives are to review organization and structure of the class, and then we're going to begin the tutorials. And our announcements are in huge purple so that they catch your attention. We do not have a virtual session next week, right? I'm going to end up canceling it. I was going to try to make it work, but I'm going to be in Orlando at a conference, and they have me in 1,000 and things. I'm supposed to be doing stuff from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., which I doubt I will be doing all of that. But regardless, I will not be able to do the virtual session at the time we're supposed to have it. I'm going to be in a different time zone, right? And I'm going to be having 40,000 pieces of information shoved in my face. So you guys will get a break from virtual sessions next week. Woo! The following week, November, let's see what day it's on. November something, which I will look at in 1 second here. We will actually be having a special guest speaker. Yes, Raiden, yes. You can't hear, so me saying yes means nothing to you. So you guys, hopefully you know by now that the home page of the course, I know a lot of us don't even go here because we just go to our calendar, has tons of important information, right? Like the link to this Zoom meeting. I wrote on here that this one's canceled, but on Wednesday, November 1st, is that a Wednesday? Yes, because Halloween is a Tuesday. Okay, good. Just making sure I got my days right. We will actually be having our first guest speaker, who is going to be one of my friends, but she works in a biology lab. So who knows what an AMA is? Think about Reddit, like Reddit AMAs. Does anybody know what that is or what that stands for? You could either speak or type in the chat. A weird kind of M&M. Good guess. No, it stands for Ask Me Anything, right? And it's usually used for like people who are experts, like, oh, I'm famous because I'm a YouTube person and I do my YouTube channel. And if they have an AMA, then people ask them questions. Oh, how did you get subscribers? And where did you advertise for your channel? And how do you come up with content? And, how much time do you spend working on your channel, blah, 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 right? And it's supposed to be like a learning opportunity so you can kind of figure out, yeah, like a Q&A kind of. So you can kind of learn what that person did to be successful or to achieve whatever we're trying to achieve, right? So we're going to do that with my friend. And then the second one is going to be my dad, who's really funny and loves presenting. So you guys are going to be coming up with questions to ask them, right? And these are supposed to be like career-oriented questions, right? But if you have other questions like, what else do you do besides work or something, you could ask things like that, right? But I'll give you some more information about that next week in the course for you to work on. But just keep in mind the next time that we meet, we are going to have a special guest speaker who's also my friend. But she has a cool job, so that's why I picked her. Okay, other than that, let's go back to this PowerPoint. The field trip on the 31st is canceled, right? We were going to go to Western Oregon. We didn't have a lot of people buzzing about it, and we decided that you guys can attend the college trip on the 30th instead, right? We had 2 college trips basically at the same time. So the one on the 30th is huge. It's going to be in the convention center, and there's going to be colleges from all over the state and the country, right? There might even be international colleges there, right? So if you're interested in learning about colleges and getting to know all about what's happening, definitely go to that. Where do you get the permission slips? I believe there is a link to them in your Canvas on the home page. If you never got a link to it or an email about it, you are welcome to email me and I will find how to get you the slip, right? Because I'm not exactly sure if there's like a location where they are. Am I coming on the college trip? I don't know. That's on a Monday. Actually, I might pop over there. I probably won't come with you guys because I kind of live near the convention center, so it's much easier for me to go to the convention center from my house. But it's cool, right? And of course, these colleges are going to be trying to advertise to you, oh, our college has the best this, the best that. So make sure that you get information to look at home so you can really, read through the BS and see what's really going on. So, shout outs. Thank you to Elizabeth and Eden who volunteered at open house, right? They did a great job greeting people and running the photo booth, right? Thank you guys for being there, for helping out. I put a megaphone here because, I was envisioning yelling, woo, really loudly, but I'll refrain. Do you get free stuff from the college fair? Probably, right? Colleges love to give out everything with their logo printed on it. And you should definitely ask them if they have free stuff. And usually they have like candy and stuff. So don't even feel bad being like, oh, do you have any giveaways? Because they probably do. And they love to give you bags and scarves and hats and shirts and all sorts of stuff. Although I've never been to this college fair, so if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But I assume they'll have stuff to give out. So our agenda for today, we're going to spend 5 minutes talking about binders, 5 minutes talking about notes, 5 minutes talking about critical reading, and then we're going to do our tutorial. And then we're going to reflect and do questions, right? That's kind of the time where you could leave if you're feeling good, and if you have questions, you can hang out and ask your question. So binder organization, let's see if this link takes me to Paige's binder. So I know being organized is hard. Type a 1 in the chat if you feel like you're so organized, you love organization, you spend time organizing your room. Type 2 in the chat if you could care less about organizing and you have a pile of stuff, but you know where everything's at. I see a pretty good number of 2s, a couple, ooh, Paige says 1/2. You're a half page, you're a 1/2, huh? Giovanna says the same thing, yeah. Right, so I think it might depend. Maybe you're not organized in school, but you are organized in other places, or maybe you're organized in school and not otherwise. I'm probably the least organized person ever, right? I hate cleaning, first of all, and I hate organizing. But you know what? I know where all my stuff's at. If somebody says, hey, can you find this? I will find it. So personally, when I had to have a binder in high school, it was really hard for me because I hated it and it's not how I wanted to be organized. So keep that in mind. You don't like cleaning the bathrooms. Yeah, that's probably the worst. I hate doing dishes. So that's my least favorite. But keep in mind that we're going to push hard to try this binder for at least this semester, right? And if in the second semester you can come up with a better way to organize yourself that actually works for you, right, then I will allow you to do that. Because I know some people maybe have a different way in mind and they're like, oh, why can't I do it like this? Well, you can, right? You just got to talk to me about it so I can make sure that your organization system isn't just a pile, because we want it to be at least somewhat organized. So here's Paige's binder. She has it called Paige Durius AVID Binder 2017-2018. Whoop, here's all her folders, all her classes, right? Most people got this far. I don't know if you know this page, but you could actually click on these folders and you could change the color, right? So if you guys want to make your binders look pretty, you could change it back if you want, right? You can have different colors, right? So it's more aesthetically pleasing to you, or not. You could have it all gray. It's up to you. So if we click into any of Paige's classes here, she has her cover page, and her cover page, oh, they are different colors. I just can't see them. Oh, well, sorry. I probably just made your color change. Oops. I will fix it for you in a second. In her cover page has everything listed. It's very confusing. Cover page has everything listed here for each assignment, right? So physical science, the first lesson was called speed, velocity, and acceleration, right? So here's all her notes from that. Here's her laws of motion notes. And then laws of motion had an assignment, right? I believe the assignment for the first thing was a quiz. So obviously she's not going to have anything in the binder for that. Laws of motion assignment, right? She also has a link to that. Now, if you're doing your notes on paper, right, you don't need to worry about taking pictures and linking them in here. Paige is going above and beyond here, which is why her binder is a model, beautiful binder. If you have a notebook that you have all your notes in one place, that's fine, right? But at the very least, you should be linking your assignments here. And you might even write, you know, speed, velocity, and acceleration. You might even write quiz so that you remember when you're looking over your stuff. Oh yeah, I took a quiz for that. Laws of motion. Okay, I did an assignment. Here it is, it's linked. Right now, the reason why I want you guys to do this is because the concept of studying, right, becomes really hard if your Google Drive is just a million documents and they're all called like, English, science, motion, right? And how are you ever going to remember what you called those things or what you titled them, right? You're not going to remember that. Or maybe you do and you get lucky. But sometimes you're going to end up spending 15 minutes maybe looking for a document or having to redo it because you can't find it, right? So at the very least, you want to link the assignments. So if we go back, oh, and also I had a great question from Eden. How do I get stuff in my folder easily, right? That is an amazing question. So to do that, I will not mess with Paige's organization. So let's take my own AVID class organizational system, which is where I have all the stuff that I give to you guys, right? Let's say that I make a new document here. We'll do this as an example. And let's pretend that I'm doing an assignment for my class, right? AVID. Come on, Google Docs. There we go. AVID example. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, there's my beautiful work. I want to put this in my AVID lessons folder, let's say. If you click on this little folder, right next to where your title is, it'll say move to. And it will give you all of the options here. So you can even go back to your drive. It'll tell you all the different folders you have in your drive, right? And it'll even show you assignments, but obviously you can't add it to, or documents. You can't add it to another document. So let's say I want to add it to my AVID binder. I click on my binder. If I double click, it will open the binder, right? And now I have only 2 folders because I did this as an example, right? But let's say I want to put this to my biology science folder. I double click on that. The folder is empty, but say you could go for, 2 more folders in if you have that many folders, and then you click move here. And then it tells you, oh, moving this item will share it with everyone who sees that. Well, that's what I want, right? Because I want to make sure all my teachers can see my stuff. Okay, and now it's moved, right? So now when I go back to my drive, if I go into my AVID binder and I go to my science folder, there it is, right? So that's an easy way to do it if you already have stuff created and you need to move it into the binder, right? Because I know you're probably not opening your folder to create your assignment to create, right? And that's fine. You don't have to do it that way. You can always organize after. So the last part of this that I wanted to ask is when are you guys organizing your binders? Are you doing this every day? Are you doing this when you see that there's a binder check? Are you never doing this? Right? And when do you think you should do this? Like, just think of how this could work for you, right? Elizabeth says, I try to do it once daily. That might work for her, right? I know I personally usually will either do it as I'm creating stuff or once a week. Maybe on like a Friday, I just go back and make sure all my stuff is organized. Destiny says once a week. Jessica says right after I make an assignment, as I create assignments, I do it every week, right? So find something that works for you. I would say waiting longer than a week is going to make it harder, right? Because then if you waited 2-3 weeks, you're going to have 30 assignments, right? It's going to take you much longer to organize. Whereas if you're doing it weekly or as you go or daily, right, then that's going to help you keep that organization up. So just make sure that you have something that works for you. Okay. The other slip, yes, Giovanna, I will link the slip to the October 30th field trip. Once I find out where it is, I will find it. And then I'll let you know. Okay, so our Cornell notes check-in. Elizabeth, I asked you with 4 seconds of notice to produce some notes for us that we could look at. So while Elizabeth is linking me to some notes, a lot of great examples of notes from this class, by the way. Just keeping in mind with the notes, right, as I look through people's notes, I'm not going to read every single sentence you write. I'm looking for the gist. Do you have stuff written down? Do you have questions? Do you have some kind of highlighting or circling or proof that you've interacted with the notes, right? Things that I'm seeing that are the issues, right? A lot of people's notes are looking amazing, I've got to say. Some people are highlighting or underlining a lot, right? Like every sentence is highlighted or underlined, and it's not just vocab or, important stuff. So make sure that you're really zooming in on what's important. And you might not know right away. You might not know until you take a test about it, and then you're like, oh, I guess I should have really paid attention to this topic, right? Another thing is some people I can tell are not going back and interacting with the notes. There's no highlighting, circling, starring, crossing out. There's absolutely no evidence of that. Now, if you're doing it online and you're actually erasing things and rewriting them, right, that is harder for me to see, but just keep that in mind. Is there evidence that you are interacting with the notes? And then the last thing is writing too much. And that's something that we're going to start working on towards the end of the semester and into next semester, really zeroing in on key ideas and what we should be writing down. Are they visible to everyone? I don't know, but I'm going to view them so people can see. So here are Elizabeth's notes, right? She has them digitally. Lots of great notes are on paper. So Elizabeth, can you tell us a little bit about your color coding? You have red, blue, and yellow here, right? And I'm guessing that they mean different things. So if you could kind of key me in on what your system is. Now, what I like about what Elizabeth did, especially because this is science, right? And you guys know I love science. She actually has multiple essential questions for one lesson. And that's totally possible and definitely will happen, especially if you're using Florida virtual courses, which is the sciences and math, right? A lot of times they take 2 or 3 lessons and put it into one lesson. And that can be really confusing because it's a lot of information. So one really smart thing to do is to break it up, right? What are the properties of water? That's one idea, right? Where she can really go through that. And then the next part, oh, you don't have it on this one. Another one, she had another question following up. Maybe the rest of the lesson was, something about how water is used in chemistry or something. And then you might have a different essential question. So that's fine. You don't have to only have one essential question for a lesson. You might have 2, you might have 3, you might have 1, right? And that's something that we're going to work on. Elizabeth, I'm waiting on color coding information.
I was just going to say it.
Oh, go ahead. You're waiting for me to pause. Okay, thank you.
So I always color code the key ideas of my questions in yellow. I try to pick a different color for each type of thing in the thing, and then I always highlight when the lesson has different titles, on my chemical bonds, it titled the little paragraph chemical bonds. I try to organize where I got my notes from for paragraphs if I want to go back and reference it. So if I wanted to find more things from the chemical bonds, I would know that I have that and I can just go back. And then I try to highlight the key word, the definitional words in the text, words that have definitions. I always highlight those in blue.
Great. So red is pointing you back to the lesson, right, where you found that information. Yellow is the key part of the question, right? And then blue is kind of the vocab or important words you're seeing in the text you're writing. Yeah. Right. So when I look at Elizabeth's notes, I can tell that she had to go back because I doubt she's doing this color coding as she goes. Right. And yeah, Jessica, I know you do a lot of color stuff too. I've seen that in a lot of people's notes, and that's awesome. Right. So if you have a system like that, do it. Right. Maybe that doesn't work for you. Maybe you don't like highlighting. That's fine. Right. You can always underline. You could bold things, right? Just find something that works for you that's really showing me, but also showing you that you're going back and actually looking at these notes. Now, here's kind of a hard question because I've actually rambled about notes for way too long. But should we go back and look at every note that we ever take? Let's do a yes or no to start. Should we look at every set of notes that we take again? We've got one yes and a lot of silence because I feel like a lot of people are like, huh. Yeah, I'm with you, Giovanna. It's depending, right? Maybe is the answer, right? Which wasn't a choice. You should probably go back and look at it and look at the summary. I agree with Jessica here, looking at the summary and see, is this something that I need to look over again? Because maybe it was really, really basic notes from like health or something where it was defining like two things and you were like, oh, I already knew that, or that added to knowledge I already had. I don't need to look at that again, right? Maybe it was notes that while you were doing them, you did a lot of interacting really heavily. You were highlighting, you were figuring out what to do. So maybe you don't need to go back right away. But, you know, the answer is probably you should at least look at them to see if it's something that you need to be reviewing again. And that's going to be up to you. Was that something that was really easy? Maybe you already knew about water and you knew about its properties. You probably don't need to review those notes a ton. I agree with Jessica. I would go to my summary. Make sure I know what my summary means, right? You wrote it. Hopefully you know what it means. If not, then go back into the notes and say, okay, where did I get these ideas from? Okay. So thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, what if just taking notes is enough for you to remember the information? Paige asks. Yeah, it might be. But keep in mind, school is going to keep getting harder, right? Right now, you might be like, oh, I don't even need to take notes, or taking notes is enough for me. That's true. One day you will get to a class where it is really hard, right? Where you need those notes and they are your lifeline to getting through the class. And unfortunately, as you guys are getting a lot of practice with this, having to take a ton of information and create notes out of it, you're going to be one step ahead in college, right? A lot of people in college freak out because suddenly the teacher just talks and has like two things written and you have to figure out what to write down, right? And that can be really, really overwhelming and hard, especially if it's also a really hard class. So a lot of this stuff we're doing to prepare for harder things, right? So do I want you to highlight and underline and study even if you don't need to? No, just the important stuff. Jessica answered that for me. Yeah, just the important stuff. And remember, when you turn in your notes, you're really turning in like one example to me. So make sure that you're turning in an example that shows that you interacted, right? That I'm assuming that means that you're at least looking at your other ones and you're not just writing notes and it's going in one ear and coming out the other kind of thing, right? We want to keep it inside. Okay. So our last little thing is critical reading. I hope you guys are enjoying the critical reading because I actually really enjoy reading those articles. They're pretty interesting. We're going to look at Amanda's. Amanda, I actually took a screenshot of your document so you don't have to find it because I thought it would be kind of complicated to find. So we're going to look at Amanda's and see some really great stuff she's doing that a lot of us are doing. And really the most helpful hints here, these articles are pretty short, right? But sometimes people are not referring to the article, right? You have a really great idea, but you're just saying your idea and not actually referring back to the article, right? So that's the hardest part about critical reading is it might bring up these interesting ideas or questions for you, But then you always have to come back and look at what the article was about and the evidence of the article. Right? So use it to support your thinking. I think this because in the article they said blah, 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 and that means that I'm right, kind of idea. Right? And you also eventually want to push yourself away from saying, I think. Right? It just sounds better if you just give us your point without saying, I think. Also, I think implies that you're hesitating, right? You're not sure. I think I'm right. I don't really know. No, go with it. You're right. Get that evidence from the article, put it in there, and Paige is exactly right here. Right as though your point is right. Right as though your point is right. Different rights in there. But yeah, you own what you're saying, right? Worst case scenario, somebody says, I don't think you're right. And then you have to reflect on it, right? But best case scenario, people go, whoa, she really knows what she's talking about, or he really knows what he's talking about, right? So keep that in mind, that you want to be confident in this. And that's probably one of the hardest things about writing, is really being confident in what you're saying. So here is Amanda's who owns your face Cami annotations here, right? And what I liked about this, Amanda and everyone else, is there's not a ton of stuff circled and underlined. It's very minimal, right? She wrote her vocab at the top here, which is great. She wrote her reflection questions as comments, totally fine, right? And she circled some key numbers and names, and she really only has a few things underlined. Obviously, you can't see the bottom part of the article. But that's awesome, because then also when I read, especially her answer here to number 2, right, she said, as said in the article, some African Americans, women or children, have been mistaken during a face recognition, and in the future this could result in innocent people being investigated. Maybe in a few years, when the software is more developed, it will be more accurate, right? That's her own idea there, that second part. But she's using evidence from the article to say, I don't think we're there yet. This technology needs to be developed further, right? That's exactly what I want to see in these critical reading activities, right, is using the article. And we're going to keep working on that. Okay, so now, the part we've all been waiting for, the tutorial. Do we have any brave volunteers who would like to offer their point of confusion? Now, we've been doing a lot of practice TRFs. These could be from weeks ago, right? It could be something that just happened today, something new, whatever you want. We do need a very brave student volunteer with their TRF, right? I'm going to be walking you through the whole process while I'm waiting for you guys to decide if you want to bravely volunteer your TRF. I'll go through the steps here. So first of all, whoever decides to volunteer their point of confusion is going to explain. In fact, I'm even going to let you guys share your screen. I know, unheard of. And you are going to show us your TRF on your screen, and you're going to talk us through it. I'm in this class. Here's the question that I have. Here's what I know. Here's what I did. Here's what I tried. Here's my final question. I really still am stuck on whatever. Right? That's going to be the first part. What if you have a question from a live class, you have a Cornell notes, but you don't have a TRF for it? That could work. We can work with that. Then what we're going to do is everybody's going to take notes during this process, right? Why are we taking notes? To keep us engaged, right? Sometimes taking notes isn't about like, oh, I'm going to need to reference these, but in this case, it's so that you're listening and paying attention, right? And you can, if you're like, oh, did they say that? Oh yeah, she said here, she tried that. Okay. We're going to ask questions to the person who is putting forth their question and try to assist them in getting some conclusions, right? Hopefully we will come to some conclusions, and then we'll repeat depending on how long it takes. So I will be quiet and wait a moment. And if you would like to go through your point of confusion, even if it's something maybe that you think you might have figured out, you just want to double check, go ahead and pop a link to your TRF in the chat, or just say me, and I will walk you through how to share your screen. Paige says I can go if nobody else wants to go first. All right, Paige. let's have you go. So before I let you share the screen, let's talk about the notes really quickly, what they should look like. Now, you don't need to be writing down every single word someone says, right? That's not the point. The point is to keep you engaged in what's going on. So you're going to want to have 3 columns here. This could be in a document. This could be on paper, right? You are going to be turning this into me so that I can see that you did something. Basically, you want to have the point of confusion, which is what POC stands for, right? We're going to write here, whatever Paige tells us is her point of confusion, we're going to write it and put details, about it. Then in the middle column, we're going to put the questions and ideas that people propose and kind of just going through the process. And then the final thing is, did we get an answer? And do we have final thoughts? Maybe our final thoughts are, we have no idea, right? We were not able to figure this out. And that's fine. So take a second now to set up a 3-column note option, right? Either in a document or on paper, wherever you would like to. I will give you 2 minutes. And Paige, while they're doing that, we will, yes, eat and watch the rest when you get home. We will talk about sharing. So you will actually, I believe you should be able to see now at the bottom, there's a green box that says share screen. Do you see that, Paige? Okay, so you're going to double click on that and select the screen you want to share, which should just be your desktop, and then we'll be able to see your TRF. Okay? So you can go ahead and do that now, Paige. And I didn't give you guys a lot of time to set your notes up. So you need 3 columns. I'll write them in the chat just in case here. We need one that says POC. Oops. And we need one that says questions, ideas, and then we need one that says answer. Your screen is shared. We can see it. Looks beautiful. Answer/reflection. All right, so 3 columns. First column is the POC. So Paige, it will be great if you could talk us through this instead of type it in the chat, just because, you know, it's going to be probably lengthy. I am going to be writing on a board because I don't have any paper. So I'll just come over here. So go ahead, Paige. Whenever you're ready, you're going to start telling us about your point of confusion.
Okay, so my point of confusion, well, it's for math, and the standard or essential question that I have is, how do I create inequalities in one variable and use them to solve an equation? And so I wrote out I copied and pasted a word problem that I had to figure out, and the vocabulary that I have that are related to my essential question is that I need to know what an inequality symbol is and what the absolute value of the inequality is. And I know that I'm down over here. I know that I need to be able to figure out how I should arrange the numbers and how the information given to me helps me figure out the equation. And so I talked about this with my math teacher, but I think these are just examples of word problems, and overall, just like I have a hard time with word problems. And so I think a question that I have mostly is how I should figure out how to take the information from a word problem and put it into an equation with numbers instead of having it just with words.
Okay. So this is going to sound like a silly question, but what are the symbols for equalities? That's the greater than, less than signs?
Yeah.
Okay. Just confirming. I hate inequalities, by the way. Okay. So what? We can have greater than, less than, greater than equal to, or less than equal to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So do you want to write those for us? You can actually annotate either in your document, or if you go up to the top of your Zoom, you'll see a little pop-up that gives you an option to annotate where it won't save on your document. It's up to you how you want to do that. But why don't we take a second? Let's look at the first word problem first. So everybody else who's in here, maybe we're not in this math class. Let's see, actually, type a 1 if you're in this math class, which is
Algebra 1A.
Algebra 1A. So if you're in Algebra 1A, type a 1 in the chat. Destiny says yes. Giovanna says no. Obviously, Paige says. Okay, so Ureli says, if we have a question, do we write it here so she can answer them orderly? Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So let's just why don't we take like a minute here just to kind of look at what Paige has written on the TRF, read the word problem, right? Maybe I took some notes on parts of the word problem that I think maybe could be helpful for this. And then if you do have a question to ask her about maybe how we could start setting this up, we can write them in the chat. Okay, so I see Destiny's grabbing her charger. Amanda says, how do you write an absolute value inequality? And Paige is going to her notes. Elizabeth gives a great suggestion. Have you tried to underline or circle the key information in your word problem so that you can get a better idea of what the question is asking? I would agree with that too. So we're going to learn about maybe how we write an absolute value inequality and also possibly what that key information is from the word problem that we could be using here, right? Because you're right, Elizabeth. There's, yeah, it says to write and solve an absolute value inequality to determine the range of salaries at this company. Okay, you do. Okay, so Paige, tell us, what is the key information that you pulled out of this equation? And maybe other people can chime in here too. Like, what are the important numbers here and important information?
Well, when I was looking through it with my other teacher, we underlined and circled that the average salary paid at its company is $37,500. So we underlined $37,500. And then we also underlined that it could differ as much as $4,500. And then we also need to know how to write the equation. So we underlined that we need to write an absolute value inequality to determine the range of the salary at the company.
Okay. And let me ask you this question. What is the most money that you could make at this company?
One second, I'm going to grab a calculator. The most money you can make is $42,000.
Okay. And how did you get that?
By adding $37,500 and $4,500.
Good. right? Because it says that it could differ by that much money, right? So that means it could go up by that much money or it could go down. So then what is the lowest amount of money?
The lowest amount of money would be 37,500 minus 45,500, which is 33,000.
So it would be 37,500 minus 4,500. Okay. Which is, you said 33,000?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a few people in the chat saying, you know, I don't know how to do this. I learned it before, or I haven't learned it at all, right? And that's going to be part of the struggle of this process, right? Is that we're helping each other even though we may not know how to do it, right? And so the best thing to do is follow along, right? Hey, you might learn how to do this so that when you get to this math, you're like, oh yeah, absolute value inequality. I did that in AVID, right? Or you might get to the end and you're like, I have no idea what just happened. That's fine, right? Do the best you can to stay with the group, right? And see if there's a question you could ask. Your question could be something like I asked, like, what does an inequality symbol look like, right? Because we have those symbols that look like that and the ones with the equal sign as well, right? So that is a question that you could ask. I don't know what that looks like, or what does an absolute value inequality equation look like? Maybe we don't know what that looks like, right? That could be a question that you ask. Like, they can be really simple questions. So it looks like Paige is going to notes or something else, I'm guessing. I was going to say, remember, Paige, you can see your screen. See everything you're doing. Okay, so I asked you the most money that somebody could make, right? Just because we know the average amount and we know that it could go up or down by $4,500, right? Because it tells us there's a range, which means that there's going to be somebody making a lot of money and somebody making less money. Ureli asks a great question. Raiden asks a rude question. What time does this end? Never. It's going to end in about 15 minutes. Ureli says, is there a formula to this? Yeah, could Paige or maybe someone else give us an example of what an absolute value inequality looks like? What is our final product supposed to look like here? Not for this question necessarily, but an example of one of these equations. Giovanni's taking a keyboard guess, or a cat fell on your keyboard, I'm guessing. I don't know. And guys, there's no reason why, even if you don't know what this is, why you can't be going to Google and typing in absolute value inequality. That's what I'm going to do.
In my notes, I wrote down what an inequality is. And I wrote, the value of one variable isn't equal to the other. It could be greater or less than. I don't think that really helps.
Let's see, I'm on a website called Math Planet. Should give me all the answers. Okay. Da, 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 da. Oh, I see. Okay. This was actually helpful to me. Now I actually know how to do this. I was like, I don't know how to solve this. So I'm going to take over sharing screen really quick, Paige. So all I did was do a little quick Google of absolute value inequalities because I wanted to see what that looks like. And this is what I found. So I found that an absolute value equation looks like this. X plus 7 equals 14 with our absolute value signs. Some of us maybe haven't learned about absolute value yet. That's okay, right? Oh, thank you, Paige. You also posted some in the chat. Raiden posting cute faces. Math magician. X is greater than 1/2. The first one is wrong. Yeah. So, well, maybe not. So this is just a regular absolute value equation that we're looking at first, right? And when we solve that, we know that it can be either equal to 14 or equal to negative 14. That's just something that happens with absolute value, right? It could be positive or negative. So we can get two different answers is really why this is confusing, right? The absolute value of something can produce two answers. Okay, so that's kind of what an absolute value equation looks like regularly, right? But then when we add the inequality, your right page, we end up with something like this. The absolute value of x is less than 2, right? Well, what does that mean? They tell us here, right? Basically, it means that x is going to be greater than 2. Where's my annotate? The way we could solve this one is that x is either greater than 2 or x is greater than negative 2. So on a number line, no, that's not right. That's not what it looks like on the number line. Am I wrong here? I could be wrong. That's my question. Am I wrong? Yeah, Ureli says, how do you know where the numbers should be set up? That's what we're trying to figure out.
Wait, what? What do you think is wrong?
Well, I don't know. That's how you would solve this, right? Because x is either greater than 2 or it's greater than negative 2.
No, you would flip the inequality sign because, wait, no, you wouldn't. Yeah, you wouldn't do that. Never mind, don't listen to me.
Oh, I see. I'm doing this one. That's why. I was solving the correct. I was looking at this picture and looking at the wrong thing. Okay, so I was correct. I was like, I'm losing my mind, guys. Math, I don't know. So this equation we could solve both ways here. X is either greater than 2 or it's greater than negative 2. So then on a number line, which I hate number lines, we would see something like this. Basically, x could be anything except negative 1, 0, and 1, right? It's splitting off in two directions. Whereas the other one would produce something where it's telling us that x is less than 2 or x is less than negative 2, which is why we end up getting this. So the only time you would flip it is if it was a negative. Okay, so hopefully we don't encounter that because that sounds complex. So we want to write some kind of equation like this that represents our salaries, right? So how could we do that?
When me and my teacher put it to, when we figured it out, wait 1 second. Yeah, back to, I feel like we took the, wait, no, never mind.
Because what I was thinking and what I originally wrote for myself for this, which would be true but does not show this as an absolute value, would be that the salary would have to be greater than and equal to, which I don't know how to do. Yeah, Paige, could you repost the problem in the chat for us? That's a good idea, Amanda. I was thinking something like this. The salary has to be greater than or equal to 33,000 and less than or equal to 42,000. That technically tells you about the salary, but oh, how did you do that? Yeah, that's simple. How did you do that, Destiny? Google is great. Yeah, I guess I could have copied it from this page. But that doesn't answer the question, right? Because they want us to write and solve an absolute value inequality to determine the range of salaries at this company. So would we do, yeah, I don't know. This is a hard one. Anyone else have any ideas or questions about how we might start this equation even? Yeah, how can you find the range, especially in an equation? I think that's a good question, Amanda. How do we represent range in an equation, right? I would think it would be plus or minus something. Which value of salary is less than the other? Yeah, I mean, because we either are going to be adding 4,500 or subtracting 4,500. So I feel like the 4,500 has to go in the absolute value, right? Are we doing something like the salary, which would be X, right, is it greater than? It wouldn't be greater than. Yeah, just so I was thinking, I think that's a good point, Elizabeth, that which value of the salary is less than the other, and how do we represent that? Did you end up getting an answer to this page?
Yeah.
Do you want to share the answer maybe, and then we're really only going to spend about 3 more minutes on this. So maybe from the answer, we can think of questions that might help us figure out how the answer and the question are related.
Well, me and my teacher figured it out, but I can't find where I wrote it down.
Oh no. You figured out the answer, but you lost it. Okay.
Yeah.
It happens to the best of us. So we might not come up with an answer. Right? And that's annoying, right? But at the same time, this process is it's going to get smoother as we do it over and over, but it's designed to where we may not know how to help people solve their problem, right? And the reason that I like this, I'll tell you the reason I like it and the reason I don't like it, and then we're going to finish up. Oh yeah, the steps are a great part of this. We did not go through your steps page, but what I like about this process is this model is like real world stuff, guys. Usually when we're solving problems in the real world, we don't know the answer, right? It might even be on something that you've never even heard of, or you have no idea what it is, right? And yet you still can contribute and collaborate. And sometimes having somebody ask you questions makes you go, oh, that's what that means. That's how that works, right? And then other times it might be where you have a whole 30-minute conversation about it and you kind of come to the end and you're like, well, we're still not really sure. And that's okay, right? Maybe now some of us know what inequalities are. Some of us now maybe know what absolute value is, but we haven't quite gotten to that final stage. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Oh, wait, 37,000 is greater than or equal to 45,000, which is greater than or equal to 3,700. Wait, no. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. But good start. Yeah, no. Right? This is kind of how you should feel through this process. Yes, no, ooh, I don't know. But what's hard about this, guys, is that it's hard, right? Because we don't know how to solve the question maybe, or maybe we do and we can't think of questions that would help someone else solve it, right? Because I don't even know exactly how this would look. If I saw the answer, I could probably ask some really great questions for how to get there. But inequalities are certainly not my math specialty. And maybe we've never even heard of an inequality, so that's going to make it even harder for us to sort of address this question. And Paige says, sorry, I can't remember the answer. That's okay, right? The answer is definitely obvious, Amanda. I agree with you, right? If we saw the answer, we would be like, oh, right? And that's kind of what's hard about this process. Okay, so we're going to reflect really quickly here because I don't want to go longer than an hour. Next week, we are not having a virtual session, right? Because I'll be in Orlando. The following week, we will have one. We're having a guest speaker, like I said, for probably about 20 minutes, and then we're going to do a tutorial again. Right? So come with your questions, right? And if it's math, that's fine. Right? A lot of them probably will be math, and we'll work through them as best as we can. We might not come up with an answer. We might even, Paige, if you do find your answer, we might want to come back to this one next time and see if we can kind of wrap it up. So what you guys are going to do now is reflect on this process. And how that's going to look is on your TRF form, right, which, I didn't erase. We'll just leave those inequalities there forever. On your TRF form, which, by the way, you can always find in our helpful resources tutorial request form. So if you were the presenter, right, so your Paige, which in this case is only Paige, this is going to be a little different than if you weren't presenting, right? So Paige presented. She already had this top part filled out. My computer's like having a meltdown over here. So now, come on. Oh my gosh. I'm like not even touching my computer and it's just scrolling. Okay, let's go nice and slow. You can handle it, computer, you can handle it. Okay, so the 3-column note taking, right? That is what we all should have done. At the very least, hopefully you wrote something down, right? Just to show me that you were participating and engaging in what was going on. Even if what you were writing down was, I don't know what this is, or I'm not sure what this is, right? Those are things that you can write down. If you're Paige, you're gonna also complete this reflection section of what your point of confusion was, what you learned about it, and if you gained a greater understanding, blah, 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 blah. The rest of us are gonna just turn in our notes, and then I'd like for you for now to just answer 2 reflection questions that I'm gonna put here in the chat. So the first one is going to be, what worked really well about this process? What do you think we could change and improve for next time? Right? And that might even be something like you think, hey, it might have helped if we saw Paige's TRF before the tutorial, right? Maybe we want more time to process it so that you could look through it. And maybe that's something we do. We pick who's going to present that week, and those people share their documents with us in advance, right? So that we can kind of be aware of it. Oh yeah, did I already write reflection questions? I probably did. Let me see. Yeah, oh, I did. I probably wrote something really similar to that, I'm guessing. Let me try to get back to my AVID screen. Oh, I think it's this one. I have too many tabs open, guys. You know the struggle. I probably already wrote reflection questions. Oh, here we go. Who presented in this tutorial? Okay, but I want to add my other question too, which I'm going to add to it right now. Things that you think we could do to improve the process. And maybe you don't know. Maybe you're going to say, I don't know. I don't think we could do anything to improve it. We just got to keep practicing. And that's fine. So first tutorial, tutorial reflection turn. I wanted to click. So these are the 2 things that you're going to be, the 3 things that you're going to be answering. This is going to become question 3. Sorry guys, I know I'm really confusing right now. My computer's having a meltdown, which is not helping. So we're going to be saying who presented in the tutorial, who presented, Paige presented. That's easy. What are 3 things you have a greater understanding of from doing a TRF or a tutorial, right? I think that you guys can see the value in the TRFs already. I know some of you, when you get to the end of it, you figured it out, and I can tell, right? And then the third question that I'm going to add in right now is, what worked really well about this process, and what do you think we could change? And you could even say, Miss Jamie should talk less. That's fair. That's a fair change. Or you think I should talk more. Or you think it was fine, right? Whatever you think. This is posted in Canvas, yes. So you have an assignment that's due today that's called Tutorial Reflection Turn-In. that I'm editing right now live in front of you that has 3 questions, right? And it's just a reflection as we grow and learn in this process, or say that. It's hidden by my cameras. So, do you need to include your TRF? Oh, it's because it's a Mac? No, I hate PCs. Sorry, Raiden. But I understand their appeal for games, you know. I had a Dell for a really long time. It lasted like 8 years. Do you need to turn in your TRF? No, right? I'm going to start having the weekly TRF turn in and this reflection. They're going to be 2 separate things. Giovanni asks a great question. For the people who were in Mr. Ling's AVID class, do they need to keep doing those assignments? No. So Giovanni, now you're going to start doing the assignments in this AVID class, the high school one. No, Paige, you don't need to. In the future, I'll ask you to, but not now. So you guys, I think we're a week behind where we are. So some of the stuff you might look at and say, what? But it's going to be, I mean, you were doing the same class, essentially, Giovanni. So now you're just going to be doing it in a different place in Canvas. So you don't need to turn in your TRF, right? But you do need to return in. You do need to turn in these 3 questions. Who presented in this tutorial? Paige. What are 3 things you have a greater understanding of from doing a TRF or tutorial? Right, so in this case, you could say, well, the tutorial was confusing to me because I didn't know how to do absolute value inequalities. But from doing TRFs, I learned these things, right? Or I learned what absolute value is. Okay, that's something you learned. And then what worked really well, and what do you think we could change? So now, this is the official end of the required portion of this. If you have a question that you would like to ask about the class, about the tutorial, generally about something else, please let me know. Otherwise, you're free to leave the session, right? This is going to be posted along with the PowerPoint with some of those helpful hints about the notes and binder are going to be published in modules in our first tutorial slide. All right, so any questions? Week 6, day 1. Bye, Tara. Thanks for coming and observing us. Hopefully you got to see some fun stuff. All right, Paige doesn't have questions. Colton doesn't. You guys are welcome to leave. Elizabeth's asking me about vocabulary words, which maybe I didn't add any new ones this week. You're right, I didn't have vocab words here, which means they're not in the quiz. Okay, Elizabeth, so I just actually forgot to add them into this slideshow. So I will go back and add them for next year. But for now, they won't be on that vocab quiz. So that's a great question. As for our, yeah, there's only 5 ones from this week. So as for our middle school people, if they're still around, they might not be. I'm going to send them an email with all the vocab words that we've done so far. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Well, remember, if you have a question, email me, text me, right? Ask me about it. Otherwise, I will see you guys in 2 weeks.